Hello, my name is Tim Lake, and I'm the researcher and author and publisher of the historical narrative nonfiction book, Hang On and Fly. And since the book came out on October 18th of 2015, I've had a few fans and readers email me with some questions that they had about the book. So I wanted to take a few moments on video to answer those questions for you. One of the main questions that I got most often was, what inspired you to write the book, Hang On and Fly? Well, in 2008, I was doing some genealogy research into my family in the rural farm country of Cattaraugus County, New York. It's in western New York, south of Buffalo, and north of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. I was standing on the top of a hill named for my family from back in the 1830s with my uncle when he just casually mentioned, "You ought to look into the plane crash that happened on the mountain over there across the valley." And he said, "Your grandfather was called to go help rescue the survivors and bring the dead off the mountain." And I had never heard this story before. I never knew there was a plane crash there within a mile or so of three of my family's farms in Cattaraugus County. So I was really intrigued, and I started looking into it, and I realized that this was far more than just doing some family genealogy research. I realized this was an incredible story about human heroism, about resilience, about bravery, and it had essentially been forgotten. So I was determined at that point to turn this forgotten story into a book, and here it is, Hang On and Fly. Now, the next question, what's the story about? Well, it's rather simple. The story is about a series of plane crashes in the early 1950s that really changed everything we know today and all the regulations we have today for safety when we all ride on an airplane. The main crash that I write about happened in the final days of 1951, after crash, sometimes 3 and 4 a month, all through 1951. The plane went down in bad weather, and 26 people were killed in the crash, but 14 survived, and they were trapped there for 3 days and 2 nights because nobody could find them. They absolutely had no idea where they were because of the weather. And it really has never happened in North America before, where a large group of survivors have been trapped for so long without rescue after a major passenger airplane crash. And as I said a moment ago, it has literally been forgotten. Now I talk about how they survived on the mountain, how they came to the decision that they should no longer wait for rescue, but to rather walk off on their own and find help. And then I tell the story through 4 people, 3 survivors, and then 1 farmer's wife who was in the valley, and whose life, at the time, she was dealing with a major medical crisis, whose life was interrupted by the plane crash and would never be the same after that. And then the book goes on to tell about, some more tragedies that occurred after the plane crash. Not so much as a result of the plane crash, but because of it and in the same vicinity as where the plane crashed up on the mountain. And you'll have to read it to find out the more details about it. But it also goes into about the many plane crashes all throughout the year. And then as the federal government got involved with President Truman telling his chief investigator to solve this problem now, there were a couple of more plane crashes into Elizabeth, New Jersey. And it really inspired the federal government to crack down on the early budget airlines of America and make them safer for all of us, and to impose the regulations that still affect us to this day. Another question I got was, is it about more than plane crashes? Well, yes, it is. It's about human nature, it's about bravery, heroism, human resilience, and just the incredible things that these people had to go through to survive this plane crash. And then it also tells about the psyche of American passengers flying on airplanes in the early 1950s. It was nothing like what we experience today. Another question, where did you get the title? Well, the title came from a line that was hollered by John Wayne, the famous actor, as he was playing in a movie and flying an airplane. He yelled out, "Now, let's go, hang on and fly." So I thought, that's just too incredible of a line to, leave it out. So I wanted that line to be the title. So I got the permission of John Wayne's daughter-in-law, who now runs his production company, and also the permission of the heirs of the writer who wrote the book that the John Wayne movie was based upon, and where that line came from. So that line came from The High and the Mighty, which was the book, and then later made into the movie. And in the movie, there are all kinds of scenes that I described that happened during these plane crashes in 1951 and 52. So the two are tied together. And critics have said that this movie, The High and the Mighty, was really the origin of Hollywood's airplane crash genre that has gone on and on and on over the past 60 years. So again, these crashes in the early 50s have had an impact upon our pop culture as we've watched these movies from Hollywood. So the crash happened in 1951 and 52 was another question. Why do I care? Well, I've said all the regulations, many of the regulations that keep us safe today are a result of safety measures that were imposed because of this series of plane crashes in the early 50s. One chapter in the book is titled Thief. The question goes, what's that about? Well, of all the bravery and heroism and fortitude by these passengers on this one crash above my grandfather's farm, there was just one reprehensible moment, one act, a criminal act against the dead that I talk about in the book. The title tells you what it's about, but you'll have to read it to get all the intimate details of what happened up there on that mountain. I like photographs in my nonfiction books is another question. Are there any photos? Well, yes, there are. There is one photo behind me. It appears in the book. There are more than 120 other photographs that were entrusted to me by family members of the victims and the survivors, and many more that came from newspapers, some for which I worked many years ago. And everybody wanted their photos to be out there, to be presented to the public. And many of the photos in the book have never been seen by the public. And the one you see behind me portrays the survivors at the scene just moments after they were found. And the photograph was taken by a classmate of my parents in high school from the 1940s. And as far as I know, it's the only surviving photograph of the survivors at the scene just moments after they were found. So you'll enjoy these photographs in the book. And finally, I like to read my books in print. When will it be out as a real book? That's a question I get a lot. I released the book as an ebook on October 18th of 2015, and I've made a few improvements and a few changes and a few additions and updated it consistently. And then it eventually will be available as a hardcover print book, and then later on as a softcover print book. So you will have your options. The ebook is available and you're able to read it on any format that you have, and then the hardcover book will come out, and then the softcover book will be out as well. And of course, once they're released, they'll be available at all the major retailers. You'll have to get them online at all the major retailers, and they will be printed on demand, and they will be sent to your home for you to enjoy reading them. And I encourage you, if you fly today, and about 848 million of us got on an airplane in 2014 in the United States. That's a lot of people, so we all fly. You will enjoy this book. If you like historical narrative nonfiction, you will absolutely enjoy this book. It covers an area from Alaska to California to Puerto Rico, Miami in South Florida, Washington, all around New York and northern New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, the Toronto, Canada area, and some parts in the Midwest as well. So it covers a vast section of the country, and it tells about people's backgrounds and then brings us up to the present day in 1951 and 52 when these crashes occur in America that have had such a dramatic impact upon our lives as we fly today. I hope you enjoyed the book. Thank you.